Young people chase fleeting moments of online fame, unaware that some viral challenges are designed to exploit their deepest vulnerabilities. In this video, we're revealing 6 social media trends that transformed ordinary teenagers into victims. Each challenge appeared harmless on the surface, but contained mechanisms that made fatal outcomes almost inevitable. It was October 15th, 2021, in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Phoenix, Arizona. The afternoon was warm and still, with most residents at work or school, unaware that in one modest 2-story home, a dangerous internet trend was about to claim a young life. Kieran Valdez, 14, was a freshman at a local public high school who spent most of his free time in his bedroom gaming. His parents worked double shifts at a local restaurant, and his younger sister typically attended after-school activities. Kieran had recently discovered the Blackout Challenge through a Discord gaming server where older students shared videos of themselves attempting to achieve temporary unconsciousness for social media content. That afternoon presented the perfect conditions for Kieran to attempt the challenge without supervision. His parents were at work, and his sister's soccer practice would keep her away until evening. He had positioned his phone camera in his bedroom and gathered materials, including his father's leather belt. Previous attempts that week had failed to produce the dramatic effect he sought, but he was determined to create content that would gain him recognition among his online peers. The challenge required participants to restrict blood flow to the brain to induce brief unconsciousness while recording the attempt. Kieran had watched several clips online and read message threads discussing different methods. He chose a belt placed around his neck, standing on a desk chair so he could apply and release pressure while remaining within the camera's frame. Investigators later determined he spent more than an hour alone in the house preparing the setup. He repositioned his phone multiple times, testing angles and lighting, and made several unsuccessful attempts to tighten and loosen the belt while maintaining his balance on the chair. Each attempt required him to climb down, review the recording, and adjust his position. At approximately 4:20 p.m. during a 4th attempt, the chair shifted as he leaned forward to adjust the belt's position. The movement caused him to lose balance. As his weight dropped, the belt tightened abruptly, pulling against his neck and preventing him from regaining footing or releasing the strap. The recording shows sudden movement followed by the camera tilting slightly out of alignment. After that, there is no further visible motion. Audio captured irregular, gasping respirations consistent with severe hypoxia, followed by extended silence as the phone continued recording. Kieran's sister returned home earlier than expected at 4:47 p.m. due to a scheduling change. She found him unresponsive in his bedroom and called 911 while attempting basic CPR techniques she had learned in school. Emergency responders arrived within 8 minutes of the call. Paramedics initiated advanced life support and continued resuscitation for more than half an hour. But Kieran showed no signs of neurological response. He was transported to a regional pediatric trauma hospital, where further efforts continued before physicians determined the hypoxic brain injury was incompatible with survival. The medical examiner later ruled the death an accidental ligature asphyxia caused by prolonged compression of the neck, leading to cardiac arrest. Analysis of the phone recording and scene evidence confirmed the timeline. The footage was retained by investigators and exempted from public release under privacy protections, following a request from the family. In the months that followed, the family relocated, and local schools expanded digital safety education addressing viral online challenges. It was September 23rd, 2021, in suburban Atlanta, Georgia. The evening air was humid, with temperatures still lingering in the mid-80s. Inside a modest apartment complex, most residents were settling in for the night, unaware that a viral food challenge being attempted behind a closed bedroom door was about to turn fatal. Zephyr Washington was 19 years old and worked part-time at a local grocery store. Outside of work and school, he spent hours trying to build a small YouTube channel, filming reaction videos and challenge content that had gained little attention. After watching popular creators generate massive views from attempting the one-chip challenge, Zephyr ordered the product himself, a single tortilla chip coated in an extremely concentrated blend of chili pepper extracts. That evening, Zephyr was alone in the apartment. His parents were working overnight shifts, and he had the space to record uninterrupted. He arranged his phone on a tripod in his bedroom and reviewed the challenge instructions, which encouraged participants to consume the chip whole and avoid drinking anything for relief. Wanting the video to appear authentic, he planned to follow the rules exactly. Recording began shortly after 9:15 p.m. Zephyr consumed the chip within the first minute. Early footage showed him reacting to the intense heat, but remaining seated and engaged with the camera. For several minutes, he attempted to manage the discomfort, pacing and breathing heavily while continuing to film. As the effects intensified, Zephyr began experiencing severe nausea and repeated retching. Investigators later determined he lay back on his bed between episodes, struggling to control the physical response while keeping the camera running. During one violent bout of vomiting, he aspirated gastric contents into his airway while in a reclined position. Audio from the recording captured coughing and choking sounds, followed by labored breathing. A neighbor in the adjoining apartment heard the noise through the shared wall and attempted to check on him. Using a spare key, she entered the apartment and found Zephyr unresponsive on the bed, with vomit around his mouth and nose. She immediately called 911 and repositioned him on his side while awaiting help. Emergency responders arrived within minutes and found Zephyr in severe respiratory distress. Paramedics suctioned his airway and provided advanced life support, but his oxygen levels remained critically low. He was transported to a regional medical center, where physicians determined he had suffered extensive aspiration of gastric contents, leading to acute respiratory failure. Despite intensive treatment, Zephyr's condition did not improve. The damage to his lungs prevented adequate oxygen exchange, and his heart went into arrest later that night. Resuscitation efforts were unsuccessful. The medical examiner ruled the death accidental, caused by acute respiratory failure due to aspiration of gastric contents. Investigators concluded the aspiration occurred during the challenge attempt and was not intentional. In the weeks that followed, local schools issued warnings about viral food challenges and the risks of filming extreme stunts alone. Zephyr's channel was removed by his family, and the video was never released publicly. The case became one of several cited by safety advocates urging greater awareness of how quickly online challenges can escalate beyond control, even without obvious warning signs. It was November 10th, 2022, in the college town of Athens, Ohio. Cold air settled over the neighborhood as evening temperatures dropped into the 30s. Inside a small rental house on a quiet side street, most residents were preparing for bed, unaware that an online drug challenge being attempted inside would soon turn fatal. Lyra Leigh Torres was 15 years old and lived with her mother, who worked long hours to support them after a recent divorce. Lyra Leigh struggled with anxiety and had become increasingly withdrawn in the weeks leading up to the incident. During late nights on her phone, she encountered posts referencing the Benadryl challenge, a trend encouraging users to ingest excessive amounts of diphenhydramine to induce hallucinations and altered states, often while recording themselves. That evening, Lyra Leigh was alone in the house. Her mother was working a late shift, and there was no supervision. Lyra Leigh accessed several bottles of over-the-counter diphenhydramine from the bathroom cabinet. Investigators later determined she consumed a large but uncertain quantity of tablets over the course of about an hour. Shortly before 9 p.m., she began recording herself on social media, intending to document the effects. Early footage showed her appearing restless and disoriented rather than euphoric. As the drug took effect, her speech became slurred and her movements uncoordinated. Viewers later reported that the stream abruptly became difficult to follow, with long pauses, confused statements, and periods where she drifted out of frame. Within 2 hours, Lyra Leigh's condition deteriorated rapidly. She developed severe agitation and confusion, consistent with anticholinergic toxicity. At approximately 11:45 p.m., neighbors heard loud noises coming from the house, including banging and incoherent shouting. One neighbor, concerned by the sounds and the front door being unlocked, entered the home and found Lyra Leigh collapsed on the living room floor, disoriented and struggling to respond. Emergency services were called immediately. Paramedics arrived to find Lyra Leigh in critical condition, with an elevated heart rate, dangerously high body temperature, and signs of severe drug toxicity. She was transported to a regional medical facility, where emergency staff began treatment for suspected diphenhydramine overdose. Despite medical intervention, Lyra Lay's condition continued to worsen. The overdose caused persistent delirium, cardiac instability, and escalating complications that could not be reversed. In the early morning hours of November 11th, her heart went into a fatal arrhythmia. Resuscitation efforts were unsuccessful. The medical examiner later determined that Lyra Lye died from acute drug toxicity due to diphenhydramine overdose. The manner of death was ruled accidental. Investigators found no evidence of outside involvement beyond the online trend that had influenced her actions. In the aftermath, the case prompted renewed warnings from schools and health officials about online drug challenges and the dangers of misusing over-the-counter medications. The video recording was preserved as evidence but never released publicly. For many in the community, the incident underscored how quickly internet trends can move from screens into real life, with consequences that unfold long before anyone realizes help is needed. It was August 14th, 2015, in urban Detroit, Michigan. The late afternoon was hot and humid, with temperatures reaching 89 degrees Fahrenheit. In a rough neighborhood on the city's east side, most residents were indoors, avoiding the heat, unaware that a viral stunt was about to result in severe burns and eventual death. Caspian Williams, 19, lived with his grandmother after his mother's incarceration. He had been attempting to gain respect from older teens in the neighborhood through increasingly dangerous stunts and humor. Caspian had recently discovered the fire challenge through viral videos, believing that successfully completing it would earn him status among his peers and potential social media fame. The challenge required participants to douse themselves with flammable liquid and ignite it briefly while being filmed, then extinguish the flames quickly. Participants typically used rubbing alcohol or aerosol products, not understanding the unpredictable burn patterns and ignition speeds of different accelerants. On the afternoon of August 14th, Caspian took a bottle of 70% isopropyl alcohol from his grandmother's medicine cabinet and met 3 friends in an abandoned lot behind his apartment building. The area was littered with debris and had no immediate access to water sources. At 4:45 p.m., he began the challenge while his friends recorded on multiple phones. According to witness statements from the 3 friends present, Caspian doused his chest and arms with approximately 4 ounces of rubbing alcohol. He ignited the liquid using a cigarette lighter, expecting to extinguish the flames within seconds. However, the alcohol spread faster than anticipated, and the flames intensified beyond his ability to control them quickly. Demetrius Roberts, age 14, attempted to help smother the flames using his jacket, but the fire had already caused significant damage to Caspian's skin and clothing. The friends called 911 at 4:48 p.m. While continuing efforts to extinguish the remaining flames using dirt from the lot, emergency responders arrived within 9 minutes and found Caspian conscious but suffering from extensive burns. He was transported to a regional burn center, where medical staff documented third-degree burns covering 42% of his body, primarily on his chest, arms, and face. Caspian underwent multiple surgical procedures over the following 3 weeks, including skin grafts and debridement of burned tissue. After emergency stabilization, his condition appeared temporarily controlled, but he developed complications from infection on day 12. Clinical records later showed signs of severe infection within the burn areas, which progressed to sepsis despite treatment. On September 8th, 25 days after the incident, Caspian developed septic shock and multiple organ failure. Despite aggressive treatment including vasopressor support and continuous dialysis, he died at 3:47 a.m. on September 9th. The medical examiner's report documented death due to septic shock and multiple organ failure secondary to extensive third-degree thermal burns with secondary bacterial infection. The cause of death was officially ruled accidental death due to thermal injury from flammable liquid ignition. The recorded videos were turned over to investigators by the witnesses and retained solely as evidentiary material, never released publicly. Caspian's grandmother later spoke at community meetings about internet safety, and the 3 friends who witnessed the incident required counseling for trauma-related stress. It was January 19, 2018. In a middle-class suburb of Denver, Colorado. The afternoon was cold and clear, with temperatures lingering in the low 20s. Inside a well-kept 2-story home, the house was quiet. with most family members away at work or school, unaware that a viral ingestion challenge was unfolding in isolation. Evangeline Rodriguez was 12 years old, the youngest of 3 children in a household that emphasized structure and academic success. Her parents worked long hours, and her older siblings often stayed late for school activities. During time spent alone after school, Evangeline began watching short videos circulating online, showing teens biting into laundry detergent pods as part of the so-called Tide Pod Challenge. The clips framed the act as a test of toughness and maturity, something she believed might help her feel included. That afternoon, Evangeline was home by herself. She retrieved a single detergent pod from the laundry room and positioned her phone on a nearby shelf to record. At approximately 3:20 p.m., she began filming and bit into the pod. The thin membrane ruptured immediately, releasing concentrated detergent into her mouth. She instinctively swallowed before coughing violently. The reaction was immediate. The detergent triggered intense gagging and vomiting, and Evangeline struggled to breathe as the liquid irritated her throat and airway. The surfactants in the detergent foamed when mixed with saliva and vomit, worsening her coughing and increasing the risk of aspiration. She attempted to move toward the sink but collapsed onto the laundry room floor as her breathing became labored. When Evangeline aspirated vomit mixed with detergent into her lungs, her oxygen levels dropped rapidly. The airway irritation caused swelling, making it increasingly difficult for her to draw in air. The phone continued recording as the sounds of coughing faded and movement stopped. Her older brother returned home earlier than expected at 3:42 p.m. He found Evangeline unconscious on the floor, with detergent residue visible around her mouth. He immediately called 911 and attempted to follow dispatcher instructions while monitoring her breathing. Emergency responders arrived within minutes and found Evangeline in severe respiratory distress. Her airway was inflamed and her oxygen saturation was dangerously low. Paramedics provided oxygen support and transported her to a regional pediatric medical center, where she was admitted to intensive care. Despite aggressive treatment, including airway management and ventilatory support, Evangeline's condition continued to deteriorate. The aspiration had caused extensive chemical pneumonitis, severely impairing her lungs' ability to exchange oxygen. Over the next several hours, her body showed signs of hypoxic injury as vital organs were deprived of adequate oxygen. Late that night, Evangeline suffered cardiac arrest caused by prolonged respiratory failure. Resuscitation efforts were unsuccessful. The medical examiner later determined that she died from acute respiratory failure due to aspiration of detergent contents following ingestion of a laundry pod. The manner of death was ruled accidental. The recording on Evangeline's phone was retained as evidence and never released publicly. In the weeks that followed, local schools and health officials renewed warnings about viral ingestion challenges and the dangers of common household products when misused. For those who knew her, the incident became a stark reminder that online trends can carry real and irreversible consequences, especially when attempted alone. It was March 18, 2018, in rural Montana, where early spring nights still dropped below freezing. Outside the small farming community of Whitehall, the pre-dawn hours passed quietly, with ranch houses dark and roads empty, giving no indication that a long-running online manipulation had reached its end. Serafina McKinnon was 16 years old and homeschooled on an isolated ranch several miles outside town. Her parents followed strict routines and limited her access to the internet, but during weekly trips to the public library, Serafina found unmonitored computer terminals and private time online. Over several weeks, she became involved with an anonymous online contact who encouraged participation in what was described as a private challenge group. Communication took place through encrypted messaging platforms accessed from library computers. Investigators later determined the interaction followed a recognizable pattern. The anonymous contact assigned escalating tasks that began as dares and progressed toward self-harm, combined with sleep disruption and repeated messaging designed to isolate her from family oversight. Records recovered from library computers showed searches related to self-injury, endurance challenges, and messages emphasizing secrecy, endurance, and proof of commitment. Library staff had noticed repeated sessions and concerning behavior, but no direct intervention occurred. On the morning of March 18th, weather conditions were clear, with temperatures near 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Security footage from the ranch showed Serafina leaving the house shortly after 4:30 a.m. Wearing layered clothing, she walked along a gravel access road toward an abandoned grain elevator outside town. The structure, long unused and scheduled for demolition, stood approximately 80 feet tall and was accessible by an exterior ladder. Cell tower records placed her phone near the site shortly before sunrise. Digital data recovered later showed messages received that morning urging completion of a final task, framed as a test of resolve. No public broadcast was involved. Investigators found no evidence that anyone else was physically present or aware of her location at the time. At approximately 6:02 a.m., an early morning jogger passing along a nearby road witnessed a figure fall from the structure and immediately called 911. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, but Serafina showed no signs of life. She was transported to a regional medical facility, where she was pronounced dead less than an hour later. The medical examiner documented injuries consistent with a high-distance fall onto a concrete surface, including catastrophic head trauma, spinal fractures, and internal bleeding. The death was ruled a suicide caused by blunt force trauma from an intentional fall. Digital forensic analysis later recovered weeks of messages between Serafina and the anonymous online contact. Investigators concluded the communication showed sustained psychological pressure rather than a formally organized program. The individual behind the account was never identified. The case prompted local and state agencies to issue warnings about online coercion and anonymous challenge groups. In the months that followed, schools and libraries in the region expanded digital safety education and monitoring policies, focusing on how manipulation can unfold quietly, without visibility, and end long before anyone realizes what has happened. Thanks for watching. Want to watch more? Click on your screen now